Well, hang on. We're now called the order, Stacy. The most important part. We get to bang the gavel.
Okay, are you here?
I am here, thank you.
Chad?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
Roy?
Present.
Mike?
Here.
Larry? Okay, Larry's, oh, that's right, he's listening to the live stream. James? James in here. Sarah? Marty?
Here.
Christina?
Here.
Howard? Paul? Okay.
And we do have Larry and James viewing by Zoom, but since they're not here participating, I think we should still reflect them as not being present, but hopefully they'll be able to learn everything that we covered today.
And not vote.
And not vote. Speaking of voting, our first approval item, approving the meeting minutes from our November 9 meeting. Which do actually also change the September minutes, but only for the spelling of your name, Roy.
Yeah, what was this? Yeah, we got it right. Stacy got it right.
I got it right?
The only other thing that's a problem here is next meeting on February 8th. It turns out it's the 15th.
And we have the year wrong as well, but let's, if someone can move to approve, then we can have discussion and make changes.
I would so.
All right, so motion by Mike. Roy, you have two proposed changes. One, the next meeting date from February 8th to February 15,
Yep.
and 2022 to 2023. Any other proposed changes or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as modified by Roy's changes? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. We have, ladies and gentlemen, agenda items. If you have public comment on agenda items, you're welcome to make it now. Anyone?
Would you consider a comment on the dog park to be
Are we
related
at
to
the dog park?
Is it now?
We'd normally ask you to wait to the end, but if you want to get it out of the way now for your
Well, I
schedule. we
figured
don't mind.
Patterson Park was probably on the agenda since the dog park is in Patterson Park.
Well, come on up. We'll call it good for today.
All right.
And state your name if you would. There will be a 3-minute timer, but please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Ron Porter, and I just wanted to thank everybody on the Parks and Recreation Committee for hanging in there with us on the dog park. It is a really valuable thing. I am practically a daily user of the dog park with my German Shepherd, and it just is great. I've met a lot of people that I would not otherwise have met. We have a nice, tight social circle with people who I didn't know before, and there was no reason to think I would ever meet them. And now we're good friends, and it's done wonders for my dog. So I thought, since I know you guys have gotten a lot of negative feedback about the dog park, and there's been a lot of issues back and forth about parking and about all sorts of stuff, and it's been kind of a tough go, but thank you for hanging in there with us on the dog park and keeping it available for us, because it really has been a very wonderful experience. And so that's really my only comment, is just to thank you and tell you that there are a lot of people out there who really like the social opportunities presented there, and have a lot happier dogs and happier owners because the park is there. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Esteemed council, my name is Sam Levine, and I'd like to thank Ron for his comments because I want to echo them. I've had the privilege of speaking with people on the neighboring street, and I think that there's an opportunity for common ground, understanding, their experiences and their frustrations. I've spoken with some of the people, and I think that there's a way forward. There is one thing that I would like to bring to your attention, though, if I may. May I approach you? I just want to show you a picture. Sure. Okay, thank you. This is what the dog park looked like 6 days ago. I'm wondering if there's anything that could be done for the drainage, because I'm starting to think that it might be a safety hazard. Yeah, as you can imagine, there's a lot that's on that ground, as much as we work to clean it up. But it might be a safety hazard. We call this Lake E. coli.
What do you call it? Lake E. coli?
Lake E. coli, yeah. But that being said, that small issue aside, I just want to thank you, just as Ron has, for making such a tremendous facility available. If there's any, and I can't speak for everyone who attends the park, but I'm sure that most of us would be willing to work with the residents to make a better experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on agenda items?
May I? I didn't come here to talk about the dog park, but Jeff Pressler, been in the park since 1985. Know Marty, Chad, right? I talked to you a couple of times about pickleball, big park user, tennis player, racquetball player, pickleball player. And we hit the dog park. I think the dog park has been a huge success. We've got a golden retriever, probably don't visit as much as these two gentlemen do, but the experiences we had there have been overwhelmingly positive. The dogs have been well behaved. I hear a couple of comments about barking in the morning from some of my pickleball friends that live very, very close. That's the only negative thing I've ever heard, but I think you guys have done a great job with the dog park. Just wanted to echo the comments that these gentlemen made. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And anyone else? All right, moving on to Chad's report, and we talked at the end of last meeting about restructuring how we're doing some of these meetings. We hope that this is the last of the old style meetings, so we are still going to continue with the way we've been doing this. But we'll get down under unfinished business to how we're going to do things going forward. But Chad, turn it over to you for Windmill Pool Park.
Absolutely. We'll start off with the Tompkins Center. I just wanted to touch base on that regarding rentals for 2023. It appears that dates are filling up faster than they were in 2022. And I think we're going to have probably more rentals overall this year. I know, we're still coming a bit out of the pandemic. But possibly even pre-pandemic, our weekend rentals, our weekday rentals are looking really good for 2023. So I just wanted to say there's going to be a lot of activity going down on at the Tompkins Community Center this year. So I'm looking forward to all the activity that will take place there. Capital improvements, just want to touch base on that. I'll hit on it in Patterson Park as well. But again, the last couple of years have been challenging with the budget overall, staffing, things like that. So 2022 was really, I think, the first year for everybody to be able to jump back to a lot of normal activity back in the park. We still weren't quite there as a department, and I'm not quite sure we'll be there this year either. As you know, a lot of businesses in general have trouble with staffing, but I have put together quite the list for City Hall to consider for capital improvement projects, and some of those items will be repairs to the exterior and interior of the concession stand and park restrooms. I've kind of put together a small playground replacement plan, meaning over the next 3 or 4 years, I would like to see us slowly replace those older items with newer, safer, ADA accessible features. The starting blocks on the pool deck are an item that we need to address sooner than later. Painting the fence along Windmill Point Drive, you've probably noticed that black wrought iron fence that's been there forever. It's still structurally sound, but it could use a fresh coat of paint on it as well. The gymnasium floor in the Labs Activity Center, Chris will touch base on that a little bit too. Along with the roofing lighting, we're making some nice improvements in there. The fitness center lighting, we've got some outdated lighting, the replacement for that. being energy efficient isn't quite there, so we're putting in that proposal. And we need some work on some concrete work on the pool deck done as well. So there's even more to go with that, but I've given them a 2 to 3 pages of capital improvement projects I'd like to see done with anywhere from low to medium to high priority items. That way everything is documented that I know what we need to address over the next few years. Any questions or comments on the capital improvements?
Second, you're gonna have a new roof put on the Tompkins Center?
On the Lavin Center.
11th.
Yep, and that was approved at the last council meeting. Chris will hit on that when we get into the Lavin's Activity Center. Well, we've got actually some update with it and some news, good news regarding that. And then lifeguards would be the last item. We are getting ready to send out the return letters to all of the guards that we had last year, and we're getting ready to also put out some more stuff for new hires. Just touching base again, it was a bit of a struggle, a lot of hard work to get enough lifeguards for last year. I'm not quite sure if that will be the same challenge again this year, but we're going to try to be creative and do the best that we can to make sure that we have the number of lifeguards that we need to be open every day, all day this summer like we were last year, but it is a challenge. Okay.
So the Lavins Activity Center ran a special, if you guys, I think we talked about it at the last meeting, 25% discount off of membership for anyone that was new for the Lavins Activity Center or that hasn't come back in over a year. And I want to let you know that we had 40 new members in January take the membership special, and we had 39 new members in December. So that's, obviously almost 80 new members running that holiday special. Huge success for that one.
Chris, ballpark, how many members do we have?
That's a very good question. I would say 2, 3.
The last I talked with some of our members at the front desk when they were looking at some of the numbers, I believe we were actually almost closer to 400 or 500 if I was right. We used to be, I thought, almost double that before the pandemic. Now it could be.
That could be it.
It was about 400 or 500. We were about half of what we were pre-pandemic, and that was before any of the specials or those numbers. So I would guess we're probably, maybe 200 or 300 short, maybe a little bit more than what we were pre-pandemic. So I think we've got some ideas.
We had a huge influx in January and December. And not just holiday specials, but obviously people doing it for New Year's resolution. We normally see a little uptick, but, the holiday special is something that when you have 80 new members or.
No, it's tremendous, yeah. And our quarterly game of stump Chris and Chad with unexpected questions, we'll come back to with the meeting structure, but thank you for coming up with an answer on the spot. Sorry, I'll turn it back over to you.
Gymnasium lighting, like Chad was saying earlier, is we got brand new LED lighting in the gymnasium. We got 16 new LED lights that replaced the lights that we had there since the building opened in 2003. Trying to go a little bit more energy efficient, brighter. Also with all the different leagues and classes that we have in the gymnasium, trying to make little nice updates to something that's utilized a lot more.
I believe with the older style light that we had up there, wasn't there actually like 10 individual bulbs or 12 individual bulbs?
It was a style I've never seen before.
Yeah, it was a unique style, but trying to replace those, changing them, the pricing for that type of bulb, and I don't even know if they were.
And the fixtures,
Yeah.
everything else that goes with it.
It was a struggle, so it was a good investment to purchase these instead, and they are probably, what would you say, a quarter, if not even smaller than the size of the old ones.
They're literally just about that big, about that thick. Whereas the other ones, you can't even hold them there.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like a plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We change the colors and all that kind of stuff, but we don't really need to do that. We set it to how we want it. But with that being said, I kind of want to piggyback on the gymnasium lighting. And that's what, again, Chad was saying earlier, was we just got approved through city council of the new roof for the Lavins Activity Center. We're going with a company, I believe you say it's pronounced Shana or Sheena.
Shana.
Yeah.
I know Anthony, yeah.
Yep, so they came in at the best bid, talked to a rep from there and got a lot of insight on the roof. And that was obviously something that was talked about prior to me over at the Lyman's Activity Center. But while the bids were out there, I went and talked to a few other companies just to see if we could beat it. We ended up beating it with their bid, so.
And they're a good company.
Yeah, beat it by about another 10 grand. And Chris, the nice thing about that, Chris took it upon himself and went out and looked for another 3 or 4 companies. So I'm glad that he did so, because typically it's 3 or 4 companies and Chris went to about 7. So
Actually, it was 30,000.
I was, oh.
Yeah, it was a $30,000 difference.
Wow.
So real happy about that, obviously. And again, with that is what I like to see in the future for the gymnasium is we're obviously looking at getting a new gymnasium floor there. Got to do the roof first, obviously, but going forward, I want to see a new floor there. Again, pickleball, like you've heard, karate, and we have a rock steady boxing in there. We have a lot of different things always happening around the clock. So trying to take things and keep them up and things that are utilized there that would be much appreciated by the residents.
We currently have one day on Saturdays that are basically don't have a set activity that are open for residents to be able to rent, and that's on Saturdays. So we may or may not add some things, but we do want to allow some time for families or teams to be able to come down there and rent it out for a couple of hours. So as much as I would put even more activities in there, I do want to allow some time for residents to be able to come in and just rent the gym out as a family or some friends to get together, depending on the weather that day.
The other thing I want to talk about is theaters. We, as you know, went to online ticketing, and since November, just to round it up, just a couple, we've sold about roughly 900 tickets online since November. So we're roughly about 300 a month is what we're averaging right now as far as tickets. So I would say it's a success. Obviously, we want that number to keep growing. Makes it a lot easier. We also do advanced ticketing sales, as we talked about at the last meeting, in person as well, if you want to do that. I kind of wanted to make a comment about the theaters because I kind of hear some stuff now that I'm over at the Lyman Center. And that is just to remind people that as far as the movies go, if we get a first run movie, we have to keep it for 2 weeks. So there are some stipulations that we get for movies of when we get them. Avatar, for example, I know we had that for a long time and I heard some stuff. One of the deals to get Avatar in opening week is to keep it for 4 weeks at least. And obviously, after we turn in the box office numbers, if the movie is making enough money, they like to have us hold it over for another week. Something that the studios want us or require from us.
If you get an Avengers, a Star Wars, you might as well play it on 4 to 6 weeks, without question.
So, for example, Friday, we're getting Marlo and Ant-Man. Well, we think that Ant-Man's going to do real well here. We have it for at least 2 weeks. It could be a 3-week movie. And it also depends on what movies are coming out. We're still not back to before COVID movies where we have a lot of movies coming out. There's just a little bit here and there of movies. So you have to try to fit the timing in with the movies. And if you wanted to show Ant-Man this week, you can't have a movie beforehand that's going to play for 2 weeks and interrupt that. So I just wanted to update, everyone on the theaters and why sometimes you'll see a movie for 3-4 weeks. Sometimes it's required, or sometimes there's just not good movies to get at the time. And the studios are still not at making a ton of movies right now. Fitness and wellness seminar. We ran a fitness and wellness seminar with Don King, the gentleman I was talking about, personal trainer that I was talking about at the last meeting, and hiring him as a personal trainer. He ran it for free in the theater. We had 25 participants. And with those 25 participants, what I did is give them a 2-week free membership to use for coming to that. And why I did that was to, again, try to do a little bit of community engagement, show our appreciation for them to, come to take the time out of their day to learn a little bit about the fitness and obviously the wellness of overall health. And I thought that it was a good reach out from our standpoint to get a 2-week membership, might turn into 3 months. If it could turn into an annual membership, or some people, might just do it for a month, but it just shows the appreciation from us, and it shows that we want you here. We want engagement. We want you guys to utilize what we have in your backyard. So I just thought it was a nice little touch to give back to the residents.
I think the goal is to get 2 or 3 people out of it, and it's a win.
Absolutely. Moving on to the marina. Subcommittee update. We had a marina subcommittee meeting, and one of the things that we discussed during the subcommittee meeting was the survey that Evan Marsh presented to us. Now, after this meeting is over tomorrow, you guys will be getting the survey and everything that I was given as far as what Evan Marsh and their timeline, which I'll discuss today. So I will have that in front of you. But one of the things we talked about was a survey that they wrote up as just a starting goal, is to certain questions, generic questions to give to the residents if we want to, basically. And that was just, again, a rough idea of what the residents or what people would like to see going forward with a new marina, sizing, depth. And it's one of those things that we can edit if we want to do a survey. Now, the overall feeling that I got from the marina subcommittee was it might not be the right timing or what we want to do as a city, but obviously it's something that has to be discussed, and I'd like to give it to you guys to discuss. But something that we talked about was maybe not doing the survey, or at least maybe we can edit it or do it at a certain time that fits the city better, their agenda.
And I think part of the survey was, it was a type of survey that looked a little bit more like a city that would be implementing a marina for the first time, a new construction. Doesn't quite fit fully what we'd be doing for replacing an outdated marina. Just some of their questions, things like that, is more for, I think, someone who's going to build something brand new that never had one before.
Are you suggesting that it would go out to the community, or we would go out to the boat owners, boat renters?
The survey would go out to everyone, but I want to at least give you guys the opportunity to look at it, see what they presented, and get your guys' feelings on it. But I wanted to at least discuss it here first before I presented it, through an email. And again, it's something that we can edit, change. It was just something that they put together as kind of a starting block for us, of a feel for what they like to ask us, thinking that some of these questions will be important, and maybe some of the questions we feel that won't fit what we're looking for the marina. But it's a good starting place, is how I felt. Another thing that we discussed was the rules of the marina. We talked about changing them, adding things in that might be missing. We discussed as a subcommittee some of the rules that we might be missing in there and want to add in there. I've started making changes to it, and of all the feedback I've gotten, that will be sent obviously up to city administration for approval. And obviously it would probably have to go through the city attorneys who have to approve those rules for the marina. But the only thing is right now I'm at about 8 pages of rules. So I'd like to see if there is a way that we can eliminate something, or if we have double of something, or our city attorney feels like we don't really need something in there that isn't as crucial as some of the other stuff. I think it'd be a lot better.
Smaller type.
Exactly. And some marinas have given me their rules that are very small type.
Cut it down.
Which we're hoping to get it down to 5 or 6 pages.
Ooh, even that.
Yeah.
I know. I'd like it to be 2 or 3, but
There's a lot that goes into the marina.
So we'll see the surveys and email. You're gonna send these prospective rule changes as well?
Yeah.
we can send the timeline, the
Yeah.
rules.
I don't mind that at all. Like I said, I've already typed it up. There's just a few things I want to fix or talk to the marina subcommittee, and then go from there. If everyone feels like that's in a consensus of that's what we want to do as far as the rules, then obviously I can bring it up show it to you guys and we can also present it to.
There can't be a consensus. I have no idea what it is.
Right. Absolutely. We also talked about communication / starting something where we have a community engagement with each peer. It was discussed that we might try to have it so that each peer has a captain or whatever name we want to call it, but a representative of each peer. And that person can talk to that peer about getting together and talking about things and picnics and just overall trying to come together as a community. It can be discussed in the marina, it could be talking about anything, but just to try to bring back that sense of community back to the marina.
Something you would find that you've heard about with the dog park, pickleball leagues, you get, basically kind of a peer party and get to know your neighbors, where you might in passing, you may say hi to them as you're heading out your boat, but have you ever actually stopped and talked with them 20, 30 minutes? And this way is a good way for them to kind of hand something out and have a night where it's dedicated to them getting to know each other and, have a social event with them.
I was going to move on to Avonmarsh timeline. And Avonmarsh is the company, obviously, that the marina is using and they presented us with a timeline, or at least a rough estimate of what they were going forward with. And the survey that they sent out, they were roughly talking about being at the beginning of February. And again, this is going to change. And nothing is going to be perfect as far as what they've sent out. And going forward, we'll have to change it depending on how we go as a city. But the survey was roughly in February, and a community response window was going to be at the end of February / beginning of March. And then they would move on to the concept development of the sketches. And that would also include like 3 schematic concepts and cost estimates and refine the preferred plan. And that would be roughly all of March and April. And again, this is something that I will present to the Recreation Commission so that you guys have it as well as I do. They also gave us something to talk about at the Marina Subcommittee meeting of water levels, which I was already, looking at water levels. And even though water levels are going to be down, I still think that the marina should be in good shape. We're still above the average. And I don't think it's anything to worry about this year. I don't know if the trend is going to continue to go down next year, and that might be something we have to look at, getting a sound depth of the marina and potentially having to dredge that. That could happen. We might have to dredge the marina if the water levels keep dropping.
Now, has the Marina Subcommittee seen these documents?
Yes,
Yeah, they have, good.
they were handed out at the last meeting.
And are there annotations or notes from what they like, or were there any decisions made, or it's just a review?
We didn't actually get to cover the timeline in the meeting.
Oh.
We discussed a few other topics, but a majority of it was spent on the rules and a couple other discussions.
Larry's got to get on the stick.
Yes.
You listening, Larry?
And then I was just going to move on to a little bit of a more generic thing, but just wanted to share that the opening date, obviously, for the marina is April 15th. And that I'm hoping before the marina opens that we could have that rules that I was referring to updated and hopefully presented, because I'd like to give that out to all of the marina members so that they can have the set of rules in front of them. They can see that it's going to be enforced a lot stricter, and that the changes that we've made in the marina.
Move on to Patterson Park.
Well, can I ask then, what are you asking us? You're going to send us the rules. You want us to comment?
Yeah,
Pretty quickly.
I'd love to
You're just
have.
looking for comments.
Yeah, I'd love to have your input on it. Obviously, I started out with the Marina Subcommittee, but I'm going to ask for your guys' input. If you guys see something in there that could change or the wording can be changed, anything to help out as far as those rules, either shortening them or something that you think is missing, so that I can present that to city administration so we can present that to all the residents or all of the, at least.
When's the next council meeting that you want to present for?
I
Marty, do you have a?
I'm not sure if it'll go to
March,
the. It's like.
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily council. as much as Nick's office.
Yeah, it would start with city administration.
Attorneys and.
Yeah.
They'll make it long.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's your job.
No better than that.
We'll move on to Patterson Park. We'll start off with the ever popular Marshmallow Drop, which is our Easter event. One of our most popular events on the year. This year is a little bit tricky with where Easter falls and spring break. The first is we're hoping that we'll be able to have the event on April 8th, which will be actually the day before Easter. Typically, we like to do it a week before, but the week before is the last weekend of spring break, and the weekend before that is the first weekend of spring break. And going before that might be just a little bit too early to try and have that event. But with how the weather's been, I don't really know what to expect at that time. It's been a weird winter. The only thing that we're having trouble right now is the company that does it for us typically does a couple of really big events on Friday the 7th, and they use April 8th as their rain out day. So like most other places, he has a little bit of trouble with having enough teams right now to be able to go out. That I've got to give him another week or two to try and put something together to make sure that we can do it on the 8th. So worst case scenario, we might have to do April 1st. I'm hoping that's not the case because I don't want to see our attendance impacted by spring break, and I don't want to rush anybody back from a nice family trip and warm weather somewhere. But worst case scenario, if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do for this year. It just falls on a different time. I would expect that we'll increase the numbers, probably at least 50 kids or so per time slot. So that should help from anybody we had on a wait list or anything like that last year. And I just look for it to be another wonderful event and have a lot of the kids involved with it. So it's always really popular. And who doesn't love seeing a ton of marshmallows from the sky and a helicopter flying right over it? So looking forward to that. And then again, I just want to touch on some capital improvements. This isn't all of what I put down. Again, I wanted to make sure I was thorough and everything that I'm kind of thinking and realistic what we can go after, but at least put it down, even if it's not in the cards for this year and next year. I'm going to continue to put those on the list so that we know that they need to be addressed. One is the restrooms at Patterson Park. Again, I'm not sure we'll get approved for a project of that significance over there. There's some work that needs to be done around the boardwalk. The putting and chipping greens asked for landscaping. We're looking to get that taken care of. Again, we haven't had the staff the last couple of years to hit on as much as we want. There's some concrete work. If you've been through there lately, right under the awning near the restrooms, that we need to do some concrete work there as well. That's a main thoroughfare there for traffic to walk out to the boardwalk and the splash pad and playground. So I'd like to see that work done as well, along with a list of other items there. But there's definitely some things we can do, and I hope that we'll be able to touch on those, especially for the users of that park. And then we'll touch base on gardening.
Chad, to clarify, are you taking those projects before the council to get approval? Is that what you said?
They'll go to city administration here at City Hall. And then I don't know if they'll make the final decision, but some of those will go to city council for approval for capital improvement projects. Some will probably be cut out before that with just looking at the budget and where we're at. And then they'll put in the ones that they believe are the most important or highest priority at this time.
Would that include playground improvements? Or is that separate?
That one will probably be separate. I believe that one will be funded. Anything that we do for the playground at Patterson will be probably, I would believe, completely funded by the foundation.
Have they committed to that?
Yep. And then as for gardening the boardwalk, Danny Beaver is a staff member we picked up in the fall. He's pretty much made that the primary focus to kind of beautify and resurrect the outside area of the boardwalk, along with helping Corinne with removing some of the holiday decoration, things like that. That's where he spends a lot of his time, and the amount of work I'm going to try to hopefully send you tomorrow, if not early next week, some of the before and after pictures of what he's been doing out there, so you can see the transformation that's taken. We've gotten a lot of compliments, some articles in the paper So we're getting that back to where it used to be.
He's a volunteer.
Nope, he is a paid staff member. Yep.
Okay.
And then we are also working with Beautification Commission, Brian Coulter, Corinne Vance, who's our gardening supervisor, to hopefully put something in place just inside the boardwalk area as a type of either adopt or sponsor a garden there, to see if we can work with the community. Either they'll sponsor the garden by taking care of themselves for the season. They may pay and possibly have a company that might be able to take care of it. Grosse Pointe Shores does something similar, so we're going to be working with them to see what kind of program we can start with that. Again, it gives our residents an opportunity to have something to stake a little claim down there. And maybe it turns into a friendly competition of who has the best looking garden down there. But there's still a lot ahead of that to work on, details, things like that. But we are looking at that to help with, a couple of years of, I don't want to say neglect, but not able to have the staffing get where we wanted that to be. So,
Chad, excuse me, do you have opportunities for memorial type items at either of the parks? I know there's some memorial benches. Do you offer that? Do people just come to you? How does that work?
Yeah, we do offer it. We used to have the tree program, and then we switched over to the memorial benches that you've probably seen as recycled plastic with the engravings on them. I am looking, and I'd love any feedback from you guys, even the staff, on possibly some other options. Maybe it's something to do with some of the flower beds, something like that, or something that's smaller. The benches aren't always the cheapest item, so if someone still wants to do something, that might not be a cost that they can do at this time. But if we could find something that was a bit smaller or would help us, rejuvenate an area, I'd have no problem with it being something, on the end of a memorial.
And so if someone were to want to do that, they would come to you and you would work with them to figure it out.
Yeah, yep. So right now there's items online that are posted for doing a memorial bench. So typically I'll send them those documents, they'll put in their request, we'll look it over, review it, and then I'll get them pricing for that bench. So it depends on how much engraving, things like that you want, what the shipping price is at that time. But they will send a request to me on what they'd like to see engraved. We discussed possible locations around the parks for them. We don't want to put 10 benches in one area and have it overloaded. So we work on a few different areas. That way they have a backup plan.
And is when we stop the tree program, do we just not have a need for more trees, or is there?
I think some of it was when the tree would die or the plaques that would go along with it were damaged. There was a lot of replacement of those items. So that's when we switched to the memorial benches because they had a longer lifespan, and were fairly indestructible. So that was just a switch. That switch was made before I actually came out with the city. So I just changed up the company. We found a local company here in Michigan. So our shipping price decreased quite a bit, and they gave us a discount from a conference that I had attended. So we always get a 15% discount off of every order. And having them only be a couple hours away, it was nice to have a Michigan-made product and company to work with. Okay. And hiring, this could probably go across the board, but again, we're at that point where we're getting ready to bring on seasonal and summer help for all departments, especially the gardening department. Just to help us out for the summer. There's a lot of work to be done with all the departments, so we're ramping up with that, and hopefully we'll have enough to get going in the spring and summer, and lifeguards and park maintenance and gate staff and Lavins Activity Center staff. We're getting by right now, but always having a few more bodies won't hurt. And we'll
Want to move on to Chili Fest?
Yeah, unfinished business, Chili Fest. I believe it went really well. Hopefully some of you were able to attend. We had over 25 businesses participate in it this year, which I believe was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 more than last year. I feel like we had lots of activities for those of all ages. That's one reason I've really liked it. I loved having it down at the parks. And it was definitely very family oriented, where I felt with having it up in the business districts allowed us really to try to cater to residents of all ages, with having retail raffles, food and beverage samples, the rides, games, things like that. You didn't necessarily have to be just a family to come down to it. You could be a young professional. You could stop in, have a beverage somewhere, walk the social district with it, stop for some food samples, hit 15 retail raffles, go to the chili cook-off. And same thing if you were a couple and, empty nesters or things like that. Same thing, retail raffles, stuff like that. But if you had a family, we had 5, 6, 7 different activities you could do, and mom and dad could still have fun because there was enough items there to keep them busy as well. So everybody got to have a good time. I believe we had 17 or 18 chilies in the cook-off. Yep. A little bit less than we had last year, but still very well attended. A lot of people there. They had a great time. And I believe we had some new winners this year as well. So it's nice to see every year we kind of have a couple of new chilies that everybody raves about. So overall, it was nice to get Charlevoix, Mac, and Kirchhoff involved this year.
What? Was there an overall winner?
Yeah, there were three prizes for people's and judges categories. So I believe Kelly Blunden won the judges with a brisket chili, and Chris, if you can remember who won the people's choice, I'm not sure if I remember.
I can tell you that it was chili number 10.
Chili number 10.
Okay.
Second place was a father-son combination of I think a spicy jalapeno chicken chili.
Yeah.
So it was, we had great participation. Everybody had a good time. And like I said, it was nice to be able to have, residents of all ages be able to enjoy it.
You had some good judges.
We had some pretty good judges. One in particular.
Thank you for judging.
Appreciate the invite. We have a few items. I think we'll probably touch base on new business.
Let's do them under unfinished business. So we talked about the commission meeting structure at our last meeting. And there were a couple things, Chad, as you're getting into budgeting, when you get something ready, just a reminder that we would like to see that, not to slow up your approval process in any way, but so that the commission has that available. In terms of.
Just an FYI thing.
Yeah, so I remember in my 4 years of doing this, seeing the budget for Parks and Rec, right? And that's something that there was interest in from the commission members. I think we should know what it is. Obviously, it's the council will approve it. And there's a lot of this that is between Chad and administration, but I think that it will help all of us better understand what Chad and Chris are trying to do and the resources they have to do it. On the committees, thank you for all of those who expressed a preference on committees. We were able to accommodate most, although not all. One caveat, the Marina Subcommittee, because Larry and Christina are already on it and because Chris is already involved, it was suggested that we don't add another commission member on top of that so that we keep the size of that committee from expanding too much, especially with the increased interest. So committee membership for the Patterson Committee, the Marina Buildings and Windmill, going to ask for we're not creating a subcommittee chair, but more of a coordinator to share some of the information that we're going to ask the committees to do. So the idea, as we've talked about this here, is we're going to ask each committee member to make a quarterly visit at least. I mean, obviously use the facilities as you normally would, but then make a specific visit each quarter to your area of responsibility. And then coordinate with your other two subcommittee members as to items that can be sent to Chad's attention. The idea is twofold here. Number one, if there's something that should just be brought to his attention, the drinking fountain's not working on the Patterson restrooms, that's one thing. But if we have questions, can we make better use of this corner of Patterson or that area of Windmill? Or the pickleball courts are looking too heavily used. Can we add more courts? Whatever it is, that the one coordinator sends an email for the subcommittee to Chad, Chris, Marty, and me. We're going to ask that you send it 3 weeks before each meeting. The idea is Chad and Chris can have a chance to actually research some questions, and rather than put Chris on the spot, for example, about gym memberships, that they can look into those things that they can answer. And so hopefully, instead of having to wait then until our next quarterly meeting to get answers from Chad and Chris, they'll be able to address it at the meeting. As part of that, and you'll recall, we're going to move to more of a report from Chad, a director's report sent out to us before the meeting as we get more discussion here and devote less of Chad's time to the report. The subcommittee questions, by getting 3 weeks out, he and Chris will have a chance to discuss. And then by no later than Friday before each of our meetings, Chad will send out his report with the agenda and the minutes. So we'll have a chance to go over that before the meeting and see what questions we might have or items we wish to discuss. So for Patterson, the 3 members will be Mike Bannon, me, and James Kunick. And I asked James to be the coordinator for that one. For Marina, because Larry and Christina are already on, we're going to ask Chris to continue his role as kind of the messenger to the commission. For the buildings, Stacy, Roy, and Sarah, and we're going to ask Sarah to be the coordinator. And for Windmill, then Howard, Paul, and Marty. And Paul, if you don't mind, we'll make you the coordinator for that one. As I mentioned last time, this is going to be something that we're going to feel out a little bit on how it works, but hopefully we'll be able to have the commission have a little more in-depth conversation about some of these items. And as we get into the spring and as things get fully back up to speed, we will, we're still working with Chad on a time. I had talked about kind of a commission visit opportunity to see everything that these guys do and all the things within their area of responsibility. And as we get out of the winter and into the spring, that's still on the list. That's just not scheduled yet. Questions from anyone on the committees, subcommittees? Roy.
I'm delighted. I never expressed an opinion, but you nailed it for me.
Thank you.
You were with Mike Bannon, yourself, and who's the third?
James Kunick.
Oh, Kunick.
Yeah, do you mind, Mike, rereading those names?
Not a problem. So Patterson is Mike, and James.
Uh-huh.
Marina is Larry, Christina, and Chris. Buildings are Stacy, Roy, and Sarah. And Windmill is Howard, Paul, and Marty. All right. Any other unfinished business?
Did you want to touch base on?
Yeah, so we'll do that under new. So now moving to new business. Before I'll just keep going here and then give it back to Chad. Yeah, sorry.
Who are the coordinators again?
Coordinators are James, Sarah, Paul, and Chris. So one of the tasks that Chad and Marty, as director and our council liaison, are asked to do is come up with goals. There's a form that city council has to be completed each year. And this is something that Chris, Chad, Marty, and I met on. And I don't know that we've ever talked as a commission about what the action items and measurables are each year. So this is an interesting one to go through. And Marty, I did see one typo. So there are 6 things that we are proposing for the commission to suggest to city council that we propose be the action items that we want them to measure our success against during the upcoming year. Number 1 is advance the marina project to the proposal stage. So the marina subcommittee has been meeting for a couple of years now. We now have Avonmarsh in place. We have a few other options. We're not talking about completing anything, but one of the things that the council needs is a proposal on which they can act. The outcome of the survey process, the timeline, and so getting it to the stage that a proposal can be brought to council for their consideration. Number 2 make available all Parks and Rec activities online. We've moved movie ticketing online. We have various others online. There are a handful of big ones, the Marshmallow Drop, Halloween in the Park, Camp Windy Mill. And moving to online registration is something that we'd like accomplished by the end of the year. Number 3, advance the design and approval stage of the playground project at Patterson. So as Chad mentioned, the foundation has been good enough to agree to fund a replacement for what is really a great playscape at Patterson, but it has exceeded its useful life. And so again, not saying that it's going to be built in 2023, but that we get to the stage of approving it. The council gets to the stage of approving it. Number 4, improve the appearance of the concession stand and restrooms building at Windmill Point. That building is showing its age. And again, we're not talking about a rebuild or a complete rehabilitation, but that we get that building looking back to the way we want it to be in our Windmill Point Park. Number 5, restructure the Recreation Commission duties and agenda. That's what we're working on with the subcommittees and the method the meeting is run. And number 6, listen, encourage debate, and offer suggestions for Parks and Recreation Director to consider and offer to council for approval where necessary. This we felt was breaking out from number 5. You've all heard me say for the last couple of meetings, part of what I want to do is increase the amount of discussion amongst this group about those items that we think our input would be useful to Chad, or where Chad thinks our input would be useful. And so as we move to that structure, we also have in here, consider an offer to council for approval, in the recognition that we're providing advice and counsel to Chad. But then Chad ultimately has to get the budget. He has to work with city administration, and many things require council approval. So as we talk about this here, what we are doing is we're trying to support Chad and Chris in their work as our Parks and Rec professionals. And we want to have greater conversation here so they have a better feel for how the community is viewing these items. So we'll circulate this once we clean up another item or 2 on it. But those are the goals that we are proposing for this year. Going in future years, it'll be our goal to get this to you in advance of one of the meetings. This is, we're changing the way things are done here. So I think all of these are achievable. There's a lot here that has been in progress for a while, and I'd like to be able to move it to the next stage. That marina proposal is going to be the hardest one.
The biggest expense.
Not only the biggest expense, it's going to be a huge time commitment. I imagine we are going to have a lot of differing views on whatever is out there. And so that's going to be a lot of work for the Marina Committee folks. But I think that all of this can be accomplished, and we're looking forward to it. Questions or comments on the goals for 2023?
Yes. Question.
Yes.
Number 6, I understood 1 and advance the marina proposal for the council.
Yep.
2, all activities online, all the registration, get them all online by the end of the year. 3 was advance the design of the playground for the council, which is being funded apparently by the Roseland Park Foundation. 4 was appearance of the concession stand in the restrooms there. Building. 5 was restructure the commission agenda and structure. I know I said that word structure. I don't think I copied that right. What was your sense of that one?
Duties and agenda.
Oh, duties and agenda. It was the 6th one that I was most confused on.
Yep. Listen, encourage debate, and offer suggestions for the Parks and Recreation Director to consider and offer to council for approval where necessary.
Yeah, all right, I see that. Okay, good.
Right. Other questions? Hearing none. Chad, your seasonal and summer help.
Yeah. Like I'd stated a little bit earlier, we're going to be going with full head of steam to try and get our seasonal and summer help, even some of the part-time year-round positions filled. So again, if you have any friends, children, friends, other community members. We have a lot of great positions, not only for, high school students, but retirees, even working adults that, just want a day or two for something at the park to kind of help and give back, something like that. We just got a lot of inter departments within one big department, which means a lot of positions to fill, and we're still bouncing back from the pandemic. So any help or suggestions you can provide, that would be fantastic. And we'll be pushing hard to make sure we can staff to have a successful year.
What's that process like, Chad? If someone is interested or we're referring somebody, how does that just send them to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just about anywhere they can stop in to get an application. So they can email, call, we can send them one, they can find them online. And even if they just have some more questions, emailing or calling us, again, they might not think that they could work because maybe they only have 4 hours a week, but there's probably a position we can find them where they could work 4 hours a week. So there might be some other incentives Chris and I have been discussing about trying to get some more staff down there. Some, not always hourly rates, but there may be some things along with, fitness center memberships or movies or things like that, that might be able to be some nice incentives that, would help some people be interested in joining our team. So we're going to do all that we can to make sure we fill.
Excellent. All right, public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone have any additional comments?
Not exactly sure where this fits in, but it mostly has to do with Patterson Park. Again, Jeff Pressler, 1153 Balfour, in the park since 1985. Chad, we've spoken a couple of times. I started playing pickleball like 2 years ago, and it was 10 of us, and it was 20 of us. A guy named Parsival Lee, who I think Chad knows, and Marcus and myself, probably on the lower end of the totem pole in terms of coordination, but we've got 168 people on a Team Reach smartphone app right now. And what we do is the coordinators put in phone calls and reserve courts and then update Team Reach so people know what courts are reserved. And this is I'll call it a pickup league, but I can't tell you how much this has kicked off or picked up over the last 2 years, from 10 to 168. Just wanted everybody to be aware of that. What are we going to do with court surface repairs?
Technically, I can't answer your questions right now. It's just comments, but
Oh, okay.
we can exchange some emails.
Yeah, so I think court surface repairs would be a big deal. Just crack filler, things like that. I think it'd be a plus. If we could turn that 3 courts into 6, that would be a plus. Or if I had unlimited money, I would plunk another 3 somewhere. But I know the more surface you're talking about, the more dollars. But I just want everybody to know it's a real growing sport right now. And again, 10 to 168 people. And, probably half of those are pretty regular. And if we could have an online application where you could reserve a court, I think that's what you were just talking about. I think that should be added to the list. We're really putting a hit on the gate guards. And if you're supposed to call in at 8 o'clock, a lot of us start calling in at 7:55. Then the other guys trump you at 7:45. And I called it at 7 o'clock once and I got barked at. And then she said, well, that court's already reserved. Well, how can it be already reserved when I call at 7 o'clock? That's means somebody got in there at 6:65. So it's kind of been, first come, first served, but you're putting a big hit on the gate guards. I just wanted to pass that along. Just a little bit, I was one of the original guys, I show my age. I went out to Shade Ground in Harbor Springs 30 years ago to look at what Robert Leathers did for Shea Elementary, one of the first playscapes in Michigan. We took some of that. I was a foreman and volunteer materials guy, trying to get donated materials for the St. Ambrose playscape. And then I was a foreman over at Patterson. I talked to Chad as well. I'm not, it's in this coordination between the Park Foundation and this and City Council. I'm just I'm a little concerned that we might be throwing away something that could be fairly easily refurbished. And I guess if you can't answer my question or concern, anything that moves, anything that swings, I could be easily replaced. I would just advocate that maybe you look at Robert Leathers, the original architect behind the Playscape. I'm pretty sure they're still in business.
I will comment on that real quick. They are one of the vendors that are proposing as the new project or playground project. They're one of the 4 that we've had come in. They also did an assessment for a renovation of the playground and a new playground proposal.
Again, they did Shea Ground, St. Ambrose, and Patterson, top-notch guys. And I've kept in touch with them over the years, just haven't talked to them recently. Worth a look.
Thank you very
Next
much.
slide.
Thank you.
Anyone else with public comment?
Briefly, because I also worked as a foreman on the park play structure, and there were actually 3 couples, the Wymans, Butlers, and the Porters, who spearheaded that effort, and it was a great community effort. And I think we're really losing something by taking that down. I don't see. I'm obviously not an expert in playscapes or in structures, but I go over there fairly often. I don't see any need for replacing that structure. That was a truly a community effort in the early 90s that involved thousands of people. We raised all the money ourselves. We did all the work ourselves. And I think it's a shame to remove that from the park unless it's absolutely essential. I don't see that it's dangerous. I see that it's a really great asset, and I just think we ought to be absolutely convinced that that thing is a hazard or before we replace it. And would certainly second having this group look and see whether it can be, whatever needs to be repaired, should be repaired. Because that really is a monument to a great community effort that involved probably thousands of people in Grosse Pointe Park and kids. And, that a lot of the design was done by kids in elementary and middle school. So I know my kids would be very upset if that was taken down unnecessarily. So just a second to taking a hard look at whether that really needs to be replaced. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
I don't know the format. Are you supposed to identify yourself and address them?
Please come up, give us your name, and then you have 3 minutes to
Okay,
address
my
the
name is Chris Zentek, Z as in zebra, IENTEK. I'm at 1369 Nottingham. I've been a community member since I believe 89.
What? 1990.
1990. All right. And as a senior citizen, we've partaken a great deal in the Lavin Center activities, and we enjoyed it a great deal. And my question basically is, when are you planning to bring back adult fitness classes like yoga, Pilates, spinning, etc., to the Lavin Activity Center? I know you can't answer me because this is a discussion, but I think there is a need in the community. I mean, the short time we've been sitting here, Chris, you've been talking about having the community building and all the efforts that you're doing to build things with the Chili Fest and the peer captains and the garden, competitions or whatever. We senior citizens really could use something where we can stretch our muscles. So I'd be very interested in finding out if there are any plans on returning yoga classes, Pilates classes, spin classes, basically the schedule that was there before COVID, And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else? Hearing none, can we get one more motion?
I moved it to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Motion, meeting is adjourned.
Want to say what the next meeting is? Piece of change?
Yeah,
I think it did.
Send out a revised earlier, please bunk out deadline so that everyone has.
So if you're gonna do one more job.